Hello, my name is Nicole Fraunfelter, and this is my Listening to Families presentation. I would like to introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. J and their son, JJ. This is a picture that was taken at a concert that their family recently attended together. Mr. and Mrs. J were childhood sweethearts. They both grew up in the same town together and went to elementary school together. Mrs. J reports that Mr. J told her that he liked her in first grade, and she cannot remember a time when he has not been the love of her life. They were married at the age of 23, and they have adopted two children. They adopted their first child, SJ, at the age of 30, and their second child, JJ, at the age of 42. This presentation will focus on JJ. Mrs. J reported that their family never put their names in for adoption. It just kind of fell into the perfect place, and God was working things out that they could not ever have imagined. In addition to their adopted children, they have hosted 20 exchange students over the last 20 years, and they have built forever families with their exchange students. Mr. J is the owner of a family business. It's a lumber yard in our town. He comes from a very large family with lots of siblings. He enjoys sports, hunting, fishing. He is a caring and helpful person, and faith and family is very important to Mr. J. He is very active in his church community and in the community as a whole. Mrs. J worked as a kindergarten teacher for many years. She takes care of her grandchildren and also helps Mr. J at the lumber yard. She cooks meals for the workers at the lumber yard every day, and she's known for her wonderful homemade buns. She enjoys helping and serving others, and she also comes from a very large family, and faith and family are very, very important to her. Mr. and Mrs. J have adopted two children. She states that we never put our name into an adoption agency. Let's just say I never thought God was going to give me the desires of my heart, but He sure did, and He surpassed them. She reports that their favorite song is The Keeper of the Stars. The first line says it all. It was no accident, us finding you. Someone had a hand in it long before we ever knew. Thank you, God, she says. Mrs. J reports that her daughter's adoption was from a friend of her sister's. The birth mother lived in this town for 3 months, the last 3 months of her pregnancy, and she gave birth in a hospital nearby. They let Mrs. J have a room next to her, and her daughter was able to stay in the room with her, and they would visit her birth mother. They were in the hospital for 3 days, and the adoption took about a year and a half. And sometimes that they were worried that she might change her mind over that length of time. JJ's birth mom was a 17-year-old young lady that was a counselor of her daughter at camp. She also knew that they had adopted her, and they had an open adoption, and that was something that she was interested in. She happened to be in town for a conference when her water broke, and her son was born, and Mr. and Mrs. J did not get to see him for 2 days. They thought that the birth parents might change their minds. He was in the hospital for 21 days, and he had some health concerns. Mr. and Mrs. J were married for 7 years when they were given the gift of their first child. Their first child was adopted, and as mentioned before, was a friend of a family member. And their second child was a teenager that knew that they would be willing to do an open adoption. They have been very open with sharing their adoptive children with their biological parents, but do report that contact kind of has gone down the longer that they've had them, but they are very open to still having their children have contact with them. Their older child is an adult and does have contact with her biological parents, and everything is wonderful. Mrs. J reports that they have a wonderful big family that's full of love and willingness to extend help to each other, and they are just so thankful that they have each other. As mentioned before, they also host exchange students, and they currently have 2 exchange students living with them at this time. They report that these students become forever family and they have lifetime relationships with them. This is a picture of JJ's birth parents and Mrs. J as she was meeting or taking care of her new son. Mrs. J noticed right away that JJ had some health concerns. She states that he was in the hospital for 21 days and was diagnosed with many things. She reports that he was diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, failure to thrive, jaundice, and he would not suck. He also did not pass his hearing test. She also reports that when he came home, he was a very fussy baby. Her daughter called him the fun sucker, and they stopped doing a lot of things that they used to do because he would cry all of the time. She reports that she thought she was going to go crazy. She went to the pediatrician many times telling him that something was wrong, but he just said that it was the fetal alcohol syndrome and that they would just have to get through it. Finally, he did some tests and found out that he actually had a hole in his heart that usually closes by 3 months, and his had not. He had mitral stenosis, and he had to have a surgery when he was 15 months old for a repair. And that is why he was crying a lot. The sucking made him tired, and he would fall asleep, and then he would wake up hungry and tire out. After he had his surgery, he was a much happier baby. Mrs. J reports that JJ had a cardiologist that was amazing. She says, I am sure he had so many patients, but he still took the time to know our names, visit us at home and at work, got to know JJ other than as a heart patient, and shared his heart of concern for how we felt, what was difficult, people, and what people to see for help. This meant so much to them. JJ will require a new valve in the future. He continues to doctor to monitor his heart progress. He has been seen by other doctors for other concerns such as physical, social, and other possible diagnosis, but he is currently doing well and is a happy 13-year-old boy. Mr. and Mrs. J provided a lot of doctor's reports and psychologist reports that had a lot of different diagnostic information on JJ. A lot of it was contradicting to each other, and Mr. and Mrs. J are not sure what diagnosis to go with as doctors, and professionals do not tend to agree. For example, some doctors have told them that JJ does not, in fact, have fetal alcohol syndrome as he was diagnosed with at birth. It becomes challenging to know how to help him when they're not sure on a definitive diagnosis, but Mr. and Mrs. J want to figure out what works best for their son. They just want JJ to love, to learn, and always do the best that he can. They are so thankful for teachers that are willing to help them figure out how he can learn best. JJ is a fun-loving young man. He loves his electronics. He likes to read. He loves to play with his niece and nephew. He loves playing with and taking care of his new dog, Lexi. Has a wonderful imagination and loves to create things. He is well known for telling his jokes. He enjoys watching movies, fishing and hunting, sports, especially baseball and basketball, and keeping busy. When asked, "What do you want us to know about your family?" Mr. and Mrs. J said they wanted us to know that they really love their son and they just want to do what is best for him. They're so thankful for the team effort of their family, their community, their church, the school, and everyone who cares about them. They said that they love their big family and it's so full of love. Their family is always there to give them help and support and prayers and a break if they need it. They live in a community where they feel everybody helps out, and they have a church family that supports them and prays for them. In school, JJ enjoys school and he loves his friends. His mom reports that he has come a long way. He has a great memory. He likes to move and learn. He has challenges getting information into written language, and he has social speech and language issues. He is currently on an IEP, and he is being served for a learning disability in written language, and also he receives social speech and language services. Mrs. J reports that school is exciting because we all want our children to learn, but sometimes it's stressful because her son needs more support than her daughter did. And sometimes she feels that he needs more help than she feels like she is capable of giving him. JJ's strengths include having a great memory, being extremely creative, being such a happy person, being funny, caring about others, having a big loving heart, and loving God. Some challenges that he faces is getting what he knows down on tests, moving while he's learning, and Mrs. J reports that this is kind of challenging for her because she does not learn in that way. And socially, at times he is loud and maybe has challenges with boundaries, and at times no verbal filter, and he can sometimes dominate a conversation. When asked how the school can best serve this family, their main issue was communication. As all parents, they want to be informed of how things are going and how they can be helping at home as well. They report that they're so thankful that the school has been in communication with them and that they can text or call whenever needed. They would like the school to help him become an independent and responsible young man, and they would also like them to help him find new ways that he can learn, ways that maybe are different from other people, but that help him learn best. And they would like us to help him find ways that he can get what he knows out. When asked what they love to do with their son, Mrs. J jokes that he keeps her studying history and science. She also says that she loves his joy and humor, that he still likes to hold her hand, that he tells her that she's pretty, that he has a great memory, and that he has a deep love for the Lord. JJ enjoys doing a variety of things with his dad. You name it, he enjoys doing it. He just loves spending time with his dad. Some of those things include sports, hunting, swimming, watching TV, playing games, fishing, working out, and singing. He reports daily to his teacher the workouts that he does with his dad. When asked about parenting challenges, Mrs. J said that her husband says that all families have challenges and we just get through it together. When our children struggle, the parents struggle, and sometimes JJ might struggle more than his peers, but God knows the plans that he has for him. She states God knows his master plan. Even if I sometimes try to change that, I am trying to do my best to love his masterpiece, even if it's a hard one to make out sometimes. When asked if having a child with a disability has impacted their marriage or family dynamic, they answered yes, it does, but it helps that they don't always agree on everything because it brings balance. Sometimes we're stressed out, but we're thankful for our loving family. They also emphasize that they have a community that cares and helps them out and prays for them a lot. Mr. and Mrs. J have hopes and dreams for their son. They hope that he will have a job, have a family, be a godly leader, a good provider and loving husband and father, and most of all, follow the plan that God has for him. They hope that he will have a full life. They are so thankful for teamwork. The family says that if it wasn't for the support and prayers of family, friends, teachers, and the wonderful community that they live in, they wouldn't be where they are today. What I have learned as a professional through this project is that every family has a story to tell. Relationships are the key to collaborative communication with families that we serve. Communication is essential in working together. Each of us have a role to play. We are a team, and I am thankful that I have the opportunity to collaborate with the families that I serve. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.